Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry. Got it right that time. Didn't forget the last name. Have to do that now forever going forward. Here on the Cowboys Report, we'll break down the Saints game. We'll talk some injury news with that injury report for Thursday. Set to come out in about 15 minutes, give or take. Maybe even just 10, somewhere in that range there. We already have a super chat, by the way, from Object Pawar. $5 says, let Dak deal. Will the Cowboys be aggressive on offense against the Saints with this new offensive line? Can the Cowboys be aggressive? I do think it was pretty clear, especially going back and rewatching. The Cowboys' plan was to make life easier on their offense line. I don't really blame them for that, given that front that was against them. And I think we'll see, to an extent, some semblance of quick passing game as much as possible against these defenses you play. You play the Browns week 1, Saints, Ravens, Giants, maybe not so much from that perspective, Steelers, 49ers. Your early season defensive slate is really challenging. Like when you get to the end of the year, I don't know what the odds would be of all those teams being top 10 or close to it. Probably would be one of your better options of like picking 4 or 5 defenses to be in the top half of the NFL. Like it's a good group that you're facing. So I think they will try to be a bit more aggressive. I really want to see if Marshawn Lattimore or Tyrann Mathieu practice today. If those guys don't go, that's a big deal for the Saints. Be a fairly significant loss. So I think they will try to be a little bit more aggressive, but I think they will. You got Cam Jordan, you got Chase Young, who's dialed in as a pass rusher, not always against the run. I think they'll be a little bit conservative to an extent. You got to be better on early downs, and you got to be better on third downs. And those two things often go hand in hand, especially the third down one. So will the Cowboys, we'll talk about Micah Parsons in depth here today. Will the Cowboys pay Micah Parsons? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Will the Cowboys pay him? We'll spend some time with what Micah said, what Stephen Jones said, how the Dak and Lamb deals impact this. If you do it properly, you can afford all 3 and more players because you're going to have a ton of cap space next offseason. If you want to, as we broke down previously, you can have 9 figures worth of cap space. 9, if you go about your business properly. So get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. A lot of yeses in there. Carter Boy, Brent, Brian, Marbles, the one and only Don Smith, Kendall, John, Chris, Robert, Sheila, Teddy, Chef, Cowboy Fan 03, Daniel, Caden, all typing in their yeses as a hell yes from the great Duke Bothers. I don't see a single no in the comments of today's video. Already got a score prediction. Ooh, Roger's got the Saints winning. That's not fun for anybody involved. Haven't seen any no's though as it relates to. Oh, there's our first no. Oh, every time I say that, one pops up from Sean, but it's 90+% going with the yeses there. Today's live edition of the Cowboys Report is made possible by Rocket's Money. Now, who here has had a subscription they've forgotten about? I'm sure everybody has. But Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels those unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Today's video also made possible by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't waste time searching through the thousands of tickets that are available. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today because what time is it? Game time. Ecuador man, so now the so-called best QB signed equals Super Bowl, right? I don't think anyone actually thinks he's the best quarterback. That's clearly Patrick Mahomes. And I think that this is, I almost brought this up on a show today. I'm sure we'll do it at some point. I'll mention a good portion of it. The goal, yes, is to win a championship. Unquestionably, and to an extent, everything that comes up short can be viewed as failure. What you want to do is have the best process possible. Give yourself the best chance to that. Because if we're being honest, especially outside of Mahomes, your chances to win a Super Bowl any year are really slim. Like, you're probably not going to win it because that's how it works. It's not even really 1 in 32. It's probably a little bit higher, but it's not quite 1-to-1 when the Chiefs have the same odds, right? So it's very challenging to do. But in terms of if the goal is to win a Super Bowl in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, paying Dak gave you the best chance of doing that. So what I would do is be ultra aggressive in that window and then do your rebuild. So the results, it's very hard to get the results we want. They need to be better. Make no mistake about that. And I am fine if you want to call it a failure or a disappointment if it doesn't happen. That's fine with me. From a giving yourself the best shot to do it, from a process perspective, I have plenty of issues with it because you screwed up this year along the way, by the way. But process-wise, giving yourself those best chance, you've got your best chance possible the next couple of years. We'll talk injuries on today's show. So what is your concern level over the Cowboys' injuries? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. All right, back to Ecuador Man's comments specifically. My feelings on 2024 have not changed. I think you screwed up this offseason too much. It's going to limit you too much. I do feel a hell of a lot better about 2025 and 2026, though. I think you're in a substantially better spot. Hopefully it's enough. 7-4-4. Ecuador Man says 9. Schoonmaker sucks. He has to show something good at some point. Like, he split time with Brevin Spanford and Hunter Lipke. Like, it's not great. I am worried about tight end. I think that injury could, assuming he doesn't play, well, I didn't sound like he practiced today. We'll get the actual report in a little bit. That injury could cause real concern for me because, oh boy, you're thin up there. I don't trust those playmakers outside of Lamb, and I think missing Ferguson and what he can do over the middle, I think you have to pay attention to him, and that kind of gets pulled away sometimes from Lamb, the attention. Here's today's Super Chat menu. $20 for a shot, $50 for a beer bong, $100 the bong, slap, and shot trio. The deals, season long, $500 custom Cowboys jersey. You pick the name, you pick the number. We'll wear it throughout the year. Still waiting on Anthony McMillan's. I am hopeful it's going to come in for week 2, but we'll see. Most hundreds in September. Full-sized Cowboys helmet. So we'll have that available for you guys. Let me double-check the leaderboard here before I forget about that. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss anybody's names on there, because that'd be very disappointing if I screwed that part up. Jacko's got 4. Anthony's got 3. Vanquish Time has 2. Who you got in this week's matchup? It is the pin poll, by the way, on today's video. C for the Cowboys, S for the Saints. Get those votes in the comments. 96% say C for the Cowboys. I feel simultaneously better and yet worse about your chances after week 1, because I think both teams exceeded expectations in the first game. Cowboys took care of business on the road against the Browns. The offense wasn't great, especially in the second. The second half, they were frankly bad. In the second half, game was also over. Sort of like one. I just needed one put them away drive. Just needed one of those. Didn't get it. Saints dominated, I think, a bad Panthers team. And as I went further into the numbers in the film from that Saints game, I think you can make a very strong argument. It was really just the Panthers are terrible, especially on defense for Carolina. Saints are going to be a good defense again this year. I think their offense is going to be better. I think Clint Kubiak is a significant upgrade there. And it's almost, I forget who said it. It was, sometimes going from crap to not crap, even if it's not even good, but the crap to not crap boost is so significant. Just completely unviable versus just fine is a pretty big jump. And I think the Saints might have had that. All right, if you want the Cowboys to beat the Saints, then make sure you guys like today's video. Not even a quarter of the way there on the like ratio, which always makes me sad. So like that video. If you haven't already done so, we should get the injury reports here for the Cowboys and the Saints in just a little bit. If we need to, Chris, we'll just bump that further down the line of the live show. We'll skip around. But yesterday just came out at like 4:05 Eastern, so thinking any minute here. So like that video. We're not starting the show until we get at least 100 likes. Like it's not nearly. There it is. There it is. All right, coming up on today's live edition of the Cowboys Report, we got rumors and news on mostly Micah Parsons. We'll spend a lot of time on that front there. Cowboys injury news. The second weekly injury report will be out. We'll update that. I think we're going to have some progress on Marshawn, Kneeland. We'll stand by for that one. A mailbag. Get your questions in. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip the line altogether. Let's hit Wheezy Dreamers Super Chat before we get too far into that. And we'll preview Cowboys and Saints, go a bit more in depth on certain areas, matchups, players to watch, etc. Coming up live after this Super Chat from Wheezy Dreamer says, sign Rico Gathers. JK, Tom, don't snap. Yeah, look, Rico wanted to be a rapper, not a football player. Kind of like Boss Man Fat to an extent, too. You can make it work. Dame Lillard makes it work in the NBA, but got to be good at the football part first before you can move on to that one. So, disappointing from Rico Gathers. There was the Rico Gathers hype train was just a pretty crazy one. It was a fun time, and then it just never quite materialized. So, let's get into today's live show here on the Cowboys Report. Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We are 189 subscribers away, give or take, depending on when you're watching this, obviously, from 194,500 subscribers, putting us into range for 195K on our watch party this Sunday. Make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out. Let's talk contracts. Not Dak Prescott, not CeeDee Lamb. Thankfully, those are done. But Micah Parsons instead. With the Dak deal out of the way, the next big contract for Dallas is what they're going to do with Micah Parsons. Now, Micah on his Bleacher Report show, The Edge, had this to say. A lot of fans are worried about me. I know I'm going to be a Cowboy. There's nothing like Cowboy Nation. The love is very mutual. The contract is not really what I'm worried about. If the contract, something like that happens furthermore, then that happens. But right now, we're focused on trying to be legendary. Be great and bring championships back to Dallas because that is what the most important thing is. Now, I fully expect a deal to not be done this season. And if you've watched the show, that's been the vibe for quite a while now for all the different parties involved. And frankly, even though I do have plenty of and have sent plenty of shade towards them for the handling of the CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott contracts, I don't blame the Cowboys for not wanting to or not getting a deal done with Micah. He's straight up said, basically, I want to wait till next year. And that's fine because he knows it'll probably end up being a bigger number next year. Stephen Jones saying something very similar, by the way. Right now, it's certainly not anything that's on the table. Micah made a conscientious decision that he thinks he can put together an even better year. I think he got off to a great start yesterday against the Browns. I think his play speaks louder than words. We'll go more in depth here on some of the Cowboys' options, their paths, what the contract cost is going to be very expensive. It's going to be at least $35 million per year and probably going to push closer to 40, especially with Myles Garrett also due for a new deal, by the way. So will the Cowboys end up getting a deal done with Micah Parsons? This is the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there. Y for yes or N for no. I do want to make one thing clear before we move any further here. The Cowboys unequivocally, absolutely, unquestionably have the ability to pay Micah Parsons and plenty of others. They're going to have upwards of $85, $90, $100 million in salary cap space this time or next off season if they do the things that they should be doing. And those are very easy things to do, mind you. This comes down to, okay, what is your best plan? You have an immensely valuable asset in Micah Parsons. How do you handle that? Do you pay him? Are there concerns about paying him? Is he worth more in a trade? I think you can have different opinions there. That's fine. This is America. But you need to figure out your plan pretty quickly. Now, if you don't believe me, here's what Jory Epstein of Yahoo Sports wrote, talking with 2 league executives and a third source who has negotiated top-of-the-market contracts. The salary cap will not prevent the Cowboys from signing Parsons to a mammoth second deal. Teams run into financial barriers more often due to cash than cap considerations. Bengals. And the Cowboys have the cash flow necessary to fund Parsons' extension, if they so choose. The question is not whether extending Parsons is possible, but whether extending him is preferable, and if so, in what structure. You need, as the Cowboys organization, to make a decision early in the offseason. I have my fingers crossed and my doubts in place that the Cowboys have learned their lessons from what happened this past offseason. I'll explain why in a little bit here, but first, hopefully you learned your lesson if you forgot about a subscription that you didn't want to be paying for, but you were. Most Americans think they spend about $62 a month on subscriptions. The real number is closer to $300. That's why I like Rocket Money. It is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate to lower bills for you, sometimes up to 20%. Just submit a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has seen a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. The link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. You need to, as the Cowboys front office, make up your mind with what you're going to do with Micah Parsons and do it before free agency. That should be your deadlines make deals decision. You cannot make the same mistakes you made with Dak Prescott multiple times and CeeDee Lamb most recently. I don't want to have, if your plan is to pay Micah Parsons, I don't want to have a long holdout. I don't think that's beneficial outside of keeping your name in the headlines, which, newsflash, you're the Cowboys. They will find ways to talk about you. You don't have to give them reasons anymore. It's not 1992. You can do it now. It is fine. You also want to have the money available that you will benefit from extending Micah Parsons. We've seen it time and time again. The Parsons contract, the 5th-year option is going to be $21.33 million. Now, the franchise tag for 2026, that's estimated based on the previous year's growth. It could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower. Somewhere around $28 million with zero cap flexibility if you want to tag him. And then it becomes 120% in 2027, so around $34, $33 million. With no flexibility to load that contract into the back end. You have to take that $21 million cap hit, that $28 million cap hit, that $33 million cap hit. I don't want to do that. If your plan is for Micah to be around, I want to get that cap hit lower before free agency. And I want to have that money to spend on Bland, on other players on my roster, on an outside free agent to make my team better. You have set up your window with the choice to pay Dak Prescott. Your window is 5 years, and you kind of already pissed one away this year. You have that window. Because by the time that deal's over, Dak's in his 30s. We'll see how his game ages, but he's probably not going to be in his prime the same way he's going to be over these next few years. So do not waste chances to be aggressive. Backload that contract. Do it. Push it off into the future. I think you have 2 viable options when it comes to what to do with Micah Parsons. Option 1 is pay him early. Get the deal done. Give him that contract. Get the cap hit down lower, unlike you did with CeeDee Lamb. Have extra money to spend in free agency as a result. And spend that cash so you can build a roster and actually go for it in a way they haven't in a very long time. Option 2, if you, for whatever reason, don't want to pay Micah Parsons, you trade him. And you actually win a trade the same way you haven't won a trade away a player in a fairly long time, it feels like, and you get multiple top 50 picks and first-round picks and day 2 picks and an early day 3 pick, and you get a haul back for one of the best young passers to ever grace the football field in recent memory. You go do that because he's on a Hall of Fame pace so far. So if you want them picks, okay, and then you take that $40 million, $35 million you're going to pay Micah Parsons, you get the cap hit off your books, and you throw it at other positions, and you still spend the money. Either of those plans, I can get on with that. I can get on board with that. But you got to be aggressive, and you have to change your approach more than you have previously. So what do you want to do with Micah Parsons? P for pay, T for trade. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. One little trade rumor before we go today. Bleacher Report advocating for the Cowboys to trade for a tight end after the Jake Ferguson injury. As a reminder, Jake Ferguson battling what appears to be a short-term knee injury, PCL sprain or MCL sprain, and a bone bruise in that knee. John Stevens, by the way, also banged up with his hamstring injury. That leaves 2 healthy tight ends on the Dallas Cowboys roster. It is Luke Schoonmaker, Brevin Spann-Ford. They can call up Princeton fans. We'll talk about Hunter Lipke here in a second, or on a future video. He'll probably be involved there. The solution for Bleacher Report was just trade for Harrison Bryant. Why? Harrison Bryant isn't good. Like, 239 yards at under 10 yards per catch? Why? Why? This honestly just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I have a very difficult time understanding the thought process and the rationale behind adding a mediocre third tight end or fourth tight end. Why am I trading for a short-term replacement? Are you going to give him 88 and steal it from Lamb and sell Bryanters again? No. What are we doing out here? Come on. I don't need by the time he gets into the fold, guess what? Boom. Fergie's fine. And even if you traded for him, you don't have a good tight end still. So I don't think it makes any sense at all for the Dallas Cowboys. From Ecuador man AOG, sick of hearing, don't care about money, so pay me. Okay, I get it. I do get it. I mention it a lot because this is an area of your team, the management of your cash and cap, that I think you're lagging behind other teams in. The front office overall is good because you have a good team. I think, but this is one of those elements that I don't think you have maximized the way I would like, just to maximize his talents there. Austin Carey, yardage prediction for this season on Zeke, and will he retire after this season? What did he rush for last year? 640 something. He's on pace for like 680 yards after one game. Rushing yardage, to be clear. Rushing yardage on that front. He ran for 642. Put the over under at 680 and a half. I get a little bit anxious, and Zeke actually kind of said something similar about this. And he's like, you feel great. Like he's kind of like, it's week 1. I kind of want to see how he looks in October and November. I'm hoping that the injury, that the less wear and leads to less tear as the year goes on. But I think it'd be a little bit troubling if the yardage is dropped again this year in terms of total yardage. Hopefully the efficiency, if the efficiency stays around 4, I can live with that. I wasn't as impressed going back and watching. I think the advanced numbers are probably a little bit too low on it. We'll talk about that in the preview here. But I think you got a lot of good stuff in terms of what you were looking for out of Elliott. Let's go to the mailbag here because I don't have that injury report yet. Think I know what it's going to be, but I don't want to get. I did the prayer circle tweet, so I think we'll be okay in terms of injuries there. So It is a mailbag here on the Cowboys Report. There are two ways to get on the show. You can use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip that line altogether. Again, that is via hashtag Cowboys. Otherwise, producer Chris can't find your questions. And that's not fun for him. There's always a bunch of good ones that happen there. That sometimes just like they just don't have the hashtag on there. And therefore, Chris can't find it. And it makes me sad. So you can always Super Chat, skip that line, get on the show, no matter what. Or just use the hashtag Cowboys, puts you in the queue, and Chris will bring your question up on screen. As a reminder of our Super Chat menu, 20 bucks. Oh, we have the injury report. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, everything is correct. Everything's correct. So we can do it. All right, I was right. That's good. That is good news for the Cowboys. We're 2-0 on the prayer circle tweets working. So we'll come back to the mailbag in a little bit. If you got your questions in, good news. They will stay. I really like Ecuador man's Super Chat. Let's go to Marcus Arnold's and let's save Ecuador man's for the mailbag. It's a really good point. Marcus Arnold. Ferguson should sit out a week, eat some kitten soup, let his body heal. Wait, is this? No, we're not doing that, Marcus. We're not doing this. Honestly, I thought it was kitchen at first. By the way, I was out Tuesday night at a bar, and they had the freaking debate on, and I'm like, this is stupid. I don't want to watch this. The audio was playing at the bar. I was so pissed. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I hate politics. I don't want to be here. And I wasn't even the most sad about it. One of my buddies was just like, he got like 5 minutes. And he's like, can we please go? He couldn't do it. All right, let's get to today's injury report then for the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys Report host Tom Downey here, breaking down the Cowboys' Week 2 injury news, plus the Saints as well that we will get into. So we have that Cowboys and Saints injury report. Let's go briefly here, overall look at the injury report for the Dallas Cowboys. Then we'll break down the Saints as well. Jake Ferguson, a knee injury, didn't participate again. It seems unlikely he's going to be able to go. Marshawn Kneeland didn't practice Wednesday with his calf, was upgraded to limited on Thursday. That bodes really well. I'll explain why later on in today's show. CJ Goodwin has a foot injury. He was again limited, but clearly battling something, but some decent progress there. John Stevens Jr. has a hamstring. Again, did not participate. Now, there are several Saints injuries that I want to go over here. So, DeMarco Jackson, the linebacker, calf injury, did not participate 2 straight days. That does not bode well for him. Marshawn Lattimore, the cornerback, has a hip/a hamstring injury. He did not participate today either. 2 straight days for Marshawn Lattimore. That does not bode well for him being able to play. That is a real concern for the Saints. Tyrann Mathieu, his heel injury, up from did not participate on Wednesday to limited on Thursday. Foster Moreau has a concussion. He was upgraded to full, so he should be good to go. Or at least he was in concussion protocol. Lucas Patrick upgraded from did not participate to limited on Thursday. Kalen Saunders, the defensive tackle, also did not participate. 2 updates. Jalen Ford, backup linebacker, limited back-to-back days. Taliesin Fuaga went from limited on Wednesday with the back issue. He did not practice Thursday. That is a significant concern for a Saints team that has concerns overall about their offensive line depth like so many teams. So, injury news, good for Dallas, not so good for the most part for the Saints. So what is your concern level over those Dallas Cowboys injuries? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. It is the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's talk Jake Ferguson here. The Cowboys have kind of claimed, we're not going to rule him out. We think he can play. I think it'd be really dumb if they did that. Maybe not full-on dumb. Like, I do trust the Cowboys overall when it comes to injury management, less about the information. This might very well be Jake Ferguson was never going to play, but the Cowboys put that info out there to try to trick the Saints a little bit. I would be cautious here. Like, I need Jake Ferguson. He is a critically important part of my pass-catching unit. He seam God Dak needs Fergie out there. But I need him most for the end of the year, not for a week 2 game. I don't want this to be a trap game loss, make no mistake about it, but I can't jeopardize losing Ferguson for the entire year if that's how the Cowboys feel about it. They will be smart. They will be smart. If he doesn't practice Friday, it's just not going to happen, I think. He's too good. He's too important for this long-term team there. So would you play Jake Ferguson? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section of today's show, Y or N. Let's talk injury news here. John Stevens was again did not participate with that hamstring injury Thursday. If you don't practice Wednesday, you don't practice Thursday. It's really hard to anticipate you're going to be out there on Sunday. So I doubt you see Jake Ferguson. I doubt you see John Stevens. I reserve the right to change mine. If they're limited Friday, that gives them a very real possibility. If they can't go, it's Luke Schoonmaker, Brevin Spanford. They might call up Princeton Fant from the practice squad, by the way. That's a possibility for Dallas. And I think you'll see Hunter Lipke involved. He spent over half his snaps in week 1 lined up in line at tight end. He actually spent more time not at fullback than at fullback. Mike McCarthy groups those two spots together. He doesn't have typical tight end size, but he's kind of been a versatile chess piece at North Dakota State. I think he could be more involved than we expect in week 2. Now, today's show is made possible by the Game Time app. They have a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. So download that Game Time app over at gametime.co. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, ChatSports, for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. Let's talk injury news here. CJ Goodwin, also limited Thursday. He's limited back-to-back days. Clearly battling something. He's an older player. He's actually fairly old for a special team specialist. Not as common that outside like Matthew Slater. So I would anticipate he'll probably be limited Friday, and that probably means the Cowboys have to put him on the injury report. But I think he'll be good to go. They'll monitor those snaps. I'm not even mentioning all these veteran rest days. Like, oh yeah, Brandon Cooks, didn't practice Wednesday. Now to Tank Lawrence, Zach Martin. Yeah, they don't need to. And I think that's a good plan by Mike. You'll see that, I think, pretty much every week. If you guys haven't already, now is the time to subscribe. Hit that sub button. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV for Cowboys videos multiple times per day, every single day. The biggest news, most positive at least, comes from Marshawn Kneeland. He was limited on Thursday after missing practice Wednesday with his calf injury. I was a bit surprised at that. Mike McCarthy at his press conference made it sound like Kneeland wasn't going to be out there. Was in a limited capacity. Going from DNP to limited to, limited or full, I would hope, on Friday, I think means he's going to play. Now, he's probably going to get that questionable tag, but getting in a practice Thursday, even a partial one, is a big deal. And this team needs him. Honestly, your top defensive players, Micah Parsons, Osa Odigizua, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Kneeland, those guys played a ton of snaps for you. A higher snap count percentage. I was like, yeah, you're going to want to give, Osa 40 and Mozzie 20 and Jordan Phillips and Linval 20. You gave Osa 60. A lot. Now, you were out there a lot on defense, which is partially your offense's fault, also just kind of the game flow. That also happens a lot when you allow a punt return touchdown or have one, or you get short fields. It just kind of happens sometimes that way. It's not the end of the world. Defense played great. You need Marshawn Kneeland out there. I thought he played pretty damn well in week 1. Had a couple of different pressures. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar pass rusher, at least not early on. But I think he can give you DeMarcus Lawrence light. And if I can get that in year 1, that's a huge boost for your front. So prediction time. Who has the most sacks for the Cowboys in week 2? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Coming back to the Saints injury reports here. Again, the status of Taliesin Fuaga is a real concern for New Orleans. That would be a significant loss for them if he is unable to go. They got good play out of Trevor Penning. We'll talk more about that on our preview coming up here in a little bit. That is something that I have overall concern about because that means they're going to start Ali Odu or Landon Young, and that's just Mike Zimmer just is going to be over the moon if Fuaga can't go. That'd be a very, very big deal on the left side. Also worried for the Saints about the secondary. Paulson Adebo's a good corner. Alante Taylor, I think, has talent. I love the matchup, though, against CeeDee Lamb. If Lattimore can't go, it means Kool-Aid McKinstry starts. I love him coming out of Alabama, but that's a first-year corner. It means they're probably not going to be able to shadow CeeDee Lamb. I think that bodes really well for Dallas. Seems like Tyrann Mathieu going to be able to go. We'll monitor that one if it regresses. It'd be a lot of Will Harris otherwise. You still might see some Will Harris. Honey Badger's still a very fun football player. Maybe not as great as he was at his absolute peak and prime, but he's still a good football player. So the Lattimore and Fuaga ones, certainly the ones to watch because those would be potentially significant losses in week 2 for a Saints team coming off a very dominant and impressive win over Carolina. Mailbag time here on the show. Can you aim that fan at me, by the way? I have a headache, so it's killing me. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to get on the mailbag. We will get to Ecuador Man and Abjit Pawar's Super Chat as well. Both of those coming in, either one right before the injury report and then one, just moments after. But appreciate your guys' Super Chat. 2, I think, very good questions on the show. So get them in. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chats if you want to be a part of the live show. We're also going to have some super thanks that have come in as well. So once my computer decides to stop melting down when I get 10 slacks in a row, no one's fault on that one, of course, there. Again, as a reminder, you do have to use the hashtag Cowboys. Otherwise, producer Chris he can't find it. There's too many comments because we want it that way. We want to have a lot of comments, but it also makes the mailbags a little bit more challenging than maybe they otherwise would. Boy, my computer is just not happy with me. Every time I pull up the damn depth charts, every time, it just freezes it all up there. So we'll just do it. We're fine. Get those questions in. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat. From Zeno saying, Tom, love the work you do along with everyone else and all the other channels, except for Saints Now. I added that part on purpose. You all do a great job. My question is, where's the Cowboys clearing up cap space? And while I do not see them doing absolutely anything this season with it, if they did, what are the odds at the deadline that they would trade for Amari Cooper, and what would it cost? The odds are extremely low, almost entirely because the Browns need him. The Browns' entire strategy is win games right now. And as bad as Deshaun Watson, that offensive line looked, they can't punt already. So I would be, and they also restructured Amari's deal to free up cap space. Doesn't make sense for them. I'd be pretty blown away if the Cowboys were able to pull off a trade for Amari Cooper. I think to an extent, not that he's unhappy in Cleveland. Did you guys catch him when he said he called the Cowboys we? I think he misses it a little bit. The Cowboys also screwed that up. They let it get personal. They made the mistake. So do not get your hopes up at all there. Now, we will give any and all super thanks a shout out when they come in. Obviously, this one's going out, before our next live show is after the game. So just be aware it might be a short answer if it's focused on the game, but I'll at least respond to the comment too. Any super thanks equals a shout out. Click that thanks icon, edit your message, send in whatever you want to send in. Even it's Tom, you stink. Any of those work. CJ DeYoung III. Can't the Cowboys hire some 22-year-old college grad for $60K a year to stand on the sideline and just watch the damn clock? Thank you. Look, you're not wrong. Also, it still requires your head coach to be aware enough to listen to the 22-year-old yelling in his ear. And what is the difference between listening to the clock or listening to the coach in your ear and looking at the damn clock across the field from you? It's very obvious that the clock is running down. It's not that hard. Because only the coach can call the timeout. Look, McCarthy screwed it up again. And he knows he screwed it up. Can't happen again. Cost yourself 3 points. Did matter in the Browns game. Might matter against like the Eagles or the Lions or the Steelers. Hopefully not for field against the Niners, but still, like, can't do it. So and honestly, the solution is, Mike, do your job. Like, I would tell you that Jerry Jones's answer would probably be, I need to pay somebody $60,000 to watch the clock for you, my head coach? Coming out of your paycheck then, buddy. That's what I think the actual answer would be. Because your head coach will be able to do that. So what is your confidence level in Mike McCarthy? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1, the low end, 10, the high end at the pinned comment of today's show. Ecuador man AOG, how do you beat the Niners with no juice at running back? So, great points. And I think this does get into some overarching, bigger picture conversation stuff. The NFL across the board, this has happened for a couple years in a row now, explosive plays are drying up. It is harder to find those 20-plus yard big plays because defenses have adjusted to these aerial attacks. There is a ton of two-deep coverage. You got two guys back there at all times, keeping everything in front of you. You're trying to take away the big play. The boxes are light as a result. One way to counteract how you're going about doing that is to get more plays on the ground. I think the running game matters in football. I think we can argue maybe running backs don't matter as much of the positions, but if teams are going to be in too high shell coverage against you and have 6 or in the box at most, that's where you need to be able to run the damn ball, is in that scenario. And that is something Dallas has struggled with several years in a row now. Whether it was Zeke or Pollard, they've had issues effectively running that football. You can go back and look at all those losses against good teams. You know what a constant has been? Attempts and failures to run the football. Now, I think a great way to do that is to have some juice, because I crave explosive plays. Speedy backs, those guys that can take a 5-yard gain into a 20-yard gain, I crave that, because I can find guys with vision and power. I do think the lack of juice is still a concern I have in this ground game. Wasn't a big deal in week 1. Might be as we move along. So, Ecuador man, great question and comment. Object Pawar, see that Dak passes to his tight ends a lot. Yeah. Statistically speaking, Dak is one of, and in fact was last year the most effective quarterback at that seam shot. That down the field throw, and Lamb was up there too, and Ferguson was up there too. And you even saw it against the Browns. Now, sometimes it gets him into trouble. You kind of had that 1st and 3rd down play on the touchdown drive, right? Dak is just aggressively forcing a shot to Fergie. Never should have thrown it. Probably should have been picked. Got lucky it didn't. Happens in getting a little bit too aggressive. And then comes right back and throws a beautiful throw to Cooks with a free man in his face. You live with some of the, okay, Dak, that was a little bit too aggressive over the middle, because that gives you those explosive plays I just mentioned. Those seam shots for 25 yards, those are huge plays. And there's 5, 6, 7 big ones for, every one bad one, whatever. It's actually a pretty good turnout for the Cowboys. Today's show is made possible by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills. Also, you can grow your savings. Who here is closely tracking your bank statements and credit card history? Are you combing through every single charge on a regular basis, or are you just assuming it's fine until you noticed something weird? I don't have time to watch all my accounts that closely, but Rocket Money does it for me. They have over 5 million users and have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use or don't want anymore. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and monitor your spending by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Stephen Goltz, do you see any scenario in which the Cowboys trade Lance? Does one exist? Yes. It's if they get blown away by an offer, they get an actually good offer from a desperate team. Do I think that happens? No. I don't think anyone's trading for Trey Lance right now. And in part because of just the situation he's in. By the time he gets to a new team, learns the offense, you're 3-4 weeks away from that. So now you're missing all that time of the season. Maybe it's only 2 weeks if you're lucky with the way coaching staffs have evolved. Remember that Josh Freeman game for the Vikings when he was not ready. You don't want that. Kevin O'Connell could probably make it work. He made it work with Josh Dobbs, but I digress. Trey Lance is not a valid short-term solution because he's not ready still. So he's only viewed as a long-term option, and the long-term option is out of a contract this year. So I don't think that ends up being a likely outcome for the Cowboys. I would actually be pretty surprised if that one went down. Andrew Guerrero, would you draft Jaden Blue, the Texas running back, in the second round? Maybe. I'm actually unconvinced he ends up going pro. He's been okay for Texas so far. I think he'll be more explosive. He didn't have a great game against Michigan, I thought. Did have a nice game through the air. It's a really good running back class. I think you'll be able to find somebody in the second round. TBD on if it's Jaden Blue or not. But Texas, they lost a good one to an injury, so Blue should get plenty of work this season. Clinton Bush, why didn't Deuce Vaughn play more? I don't know. He played a lot of special teams, actually, which is actually a big deal for him. He actually had a very good block on the Kevontae Turpin punt return to touchdown. So that's a big deal for Deuce Vaughn. He wasn't involved much in the first half. In second half, that's not where you want him involved. This team wants to give Zeke and Dowdle first cracks. If there's a game where they're just not running the ball effectively, wouldn't be surprised if Deuce Vaughn got more involved then. So predictions. Will Deuce Vaughn score a touchdown this year? Y for yes, N for no. Get your predictions in for me in the comment section of today's show. Observer Pawar, $2, has Dak covered for Mike McCarthy's bad decisions? At times, I think you see that on third down. The Cowboys offense last year had success because they were the best third down team passing in football. They were unbelievably good. In fact, Dak was actually better on third downs like the entire offense combined at games. And the third down is oftentimes quarterback, receivers, go make a play. I think the passing structures and the concepts are pretty good involved there more often than not. It's a far cry from the 3rd and 10 all hitches crap that the Cowboys used to run. But I do think there are times like, I think there could have been some more creativity in the ground game. I'm still looking for that. I think it's still a little bit basic. But I think there are times, there absolutely are. Danielle Spain, what's a trade we should make? Can you find an explosive back? I'd call about that idea. I think you have some possibilities of making something happen there. If you lose a player to injury, go do that. For now, I'm going to wait and see. But I will be monitoring stuff come trade deadline time. I promise you. Now, if you want to be a part of our mailbags in the future, subscribe. It's free. Easy. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. King Carroll, what do you do with Kalen Carson when Bland comes back? So he goes to the bench. You start Deron Bland. You start Trayvon Diggs. You keep Jordan Lewis in there in the nickel. I think it gives you, from what we've seen so far, confidence in some dime looks because the Browns came out a few times with 4 receivers late in that game. And the Cowboys didn't really have a dime package option. You don't want to put a safety out there. You can't put a linebacker out there, so you're kind of stuck. kind of limit some of the depth of play calls you have there. So late in games, if you're up and the Cowboys are, it's the Cowboys are up by 20 in the fourth quarter, opposing team trots out 4 receivers and a tight end. They're clearly not going to run that football. Could mix in some more dime looks in there. Take a linebacker off the field. Go with one linebacker and put Bland and Lewis more in the slot. Or if they do trips, you got options there. So I think that it might give you some more personnel flexibility. Chris Romero, at what point/game the Cowboys will realize they need a better running back or any wide receiver 3? Any trade candidates at those positions? It's one game and an upgrade at both. I'm not out on wide receiver yet because you just didn't. The Browns defense is good. Like, that's one of the better pass defenses you'll play. I'd say give it 3 or 4 games, and we'll probably have a big enough sample size to say more. At this point, they are committed to their. That's what we saw in the preseason. I think it all looks better a passing game too if you get Lamb a bit more involved there. Tristan Mounds had a Mozzie Smith look last week. Do you notice how we didn't say his name a bunch of big run up the middle? Yeah, he deserves some credit there. But I thought there was one play where everyone did a really good job of taking on their men, and he didn't get turned a lot. He held his ground. The Saints will run the ball more than what the Browns did, I suspect. Because Derek Carr is a really good play action quarterback, and that's the offense that Clinton Kubiak runs. It's how it's going to be built. So I think a bigger test coming for him against New Orleans. I want you guys to predict the score of the Cowboys-Saints matchup. Let me know in the comments of today's video. Noah Turner, what are some advantages and disadvantages you think the Cowboys have against the Saints? We've done some previews, so we kind of talked about those a little bit. I think the biggest thing for me is, can your offense be better than what it was last week? The Saints have a great defense again. Now, Marshawn Lattimore's injury could be a red flag there. And can Mike Zimmer, against a Shanahan-style offense, give you better results than what Dan Quinn was getting? Troy Hernandez, last one. My birthday's today. Can I get a Cowboys win? I hope so, Troy. Everyone type HBD in the comments as well. Here's today's Super Chat menu. $20 for a shot, $50 for a beer bong, $100 the bong, slap, and shot combo. 500 custom Cowboys jersey, and most hundreds in September gets you a Cowboys helmet, the full-sized Cowboys helmet. 4 is the leader right now from Jacko. Who was the Cowboys MVP in Week 1? Let me know in the comments of today's video. Cowboys MVP in Week 1. I'll give some shout-outs here. Tank Lawrence got the game ball, by the way. Sometimes I wonder if coaches and players do that. If it's close, they'll give it to the guy who's probably not going to win it again, or who is less likely to win it again. Could have easily given that one to Micah. Could have easily done it, but Micah will probably have other games. Tank will have one against the Giants probably. Tank and Oso, I think, will play well. Kind of both do that. Overshown. Wouldn't have been mad at. I was so happy with how Overshown played. That I think everyone's lasting memory is that Deshaun Watson sack. Just came screaming up there to make the play. They spied him. Would Dan Quinn have done that? I don't know. The defense in general, I like it. Ecuador man says me. I don't know about that one. Eric Kendricks was definitely worthy. If he had played the entire game, maybe they would have given him there. Terrence Steele, because Dak survived. Steele, I thought, actually played pretty decently. I thought he outplayed Tyler Guyton, which is probably what you were hoping for. Maybe not. That doesn't matter too much in the end. You got the dub. Parsons, Kendricks, Joseph, Linval. Linval played a little bit. Let me pull up these snap counts again here. Overall, I thought like your front in general was just awesome. They didn't really allow a bunch of runs till late in the game, which isn't a big deal. You're fine doing that when the game's out of hand. Your D-line. Yeah, it's 72 snaps, I believe, was the final figure. Or wait. Probably more than 72 snaps. Hold on. Let me double check that because I think they sat everybody late. 76 snaps. 76 snaps. That makes more sense. Because you pulled guys on that final drive. Defensive line, Osa played 61. That's a ton of snaps for a DT. Kneeland played 44, kind of lining up everywhere. Golston, same thing, 29. Mozzie played 23. Phillips played 15. Linval played 13 as well. None of your defensive tackles outside of like your big boys. Phillips, this is hilarious. Phillips, Mozzie, and Linval played a combined 10 run defense snaps. They weren't out there. Osa played 14. They just didn't run. They just didn't run the ball, which isn't a bad thing, at least for you. Chris B, Saints fans real arrogant now. Dallas 43, Saints 17. I'm a big believer in karma. I think that you're setting yourself up for some bad karma if you talk a little bit too much trash when you are the underdog. There is also a reason why you don't catch me talking trash to 49ers fans. I know my place. I ain't going to win that fight. Some fights are worth fighting. That one? Ain't going to do it. Ain't going to do it. Now, the day they win, I got the George Kittle Photoshop cooked up and ready to go. Don't know when it's going to happen. Don't know. But there's a reason I'm not doing it every time the Niners lose. Because my team can't beat them. So I'm just going to be quiet about it. Sometimes you just got to shut up. Hopefully that happens in week 2. If not, they get to be loud again. And hopefully it's not a trap game for you. Speaking of, let's preview this week's Cowboys-Saints matchup. Trap game? Maybe. Cowboys a now 6-point favorite at home against a Saints team coming off one of the most dominant wins in week 1, although Dallas not that far behind given the level of competition. Cowboys at home for the first time all year, given it's not that far of a drive. Might see plenty of Saints fans, or at least some Saints fans, in attendance. Who you got in this one? C for the Cowboys, S for the Saints. Let me know in the comments of today's video. C or S, I'd like to see one hell of a lot of C's in the comments. All right, the Cowboys injury report here. Jake Ferguson, again, we're filming this, by the way, on Thursday. You're going to go out Saturday, so should have a better feel overall for what's probably going to happen. But Ferguson's knee, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. I have my doubts there. Marshawn Kneeland has a calf injury. I have some real concerns on that one. I had real concerns. He went from DNP to limited on Wednesday to Thursday. I do think that bodes super well for him. So fingers crossed there. Not too worried about TJ Goodwin, 2 straight days of being limited. And then John Stevens Jr. has a hamstring. He did not practice the first 2 days of the week. That does not bode very well for him. The Saints, meanwhile, DeMarco Jackson has a calf injury that seems likely to not allow him to be able to go. He's banged up. Jalen Ford has been a little bit nicked up as well. A fellow linebacker, limited back-to-back participations. Marshawn Lattimore didn't go Wednesday or Thursday. His status very much in doubt. Tyrann Mathieu upgraded to limited with his heel injury, so that bodes well for him. Foster Moreau was limited to full after a concussion. He should be good to go, barring a setback. Lucas Patrick went from DNP to limited, but Taliesin Fuaga went from limited to DNP with a back. So a huge concern there on the number 1 corner, Marshawn Lattimore, and the offensive tackle, Taliesin Fuaga, the team's first-round pick. It'd be Aliodu at tackle if he can't go, and that's not a great sign. Kalen Saunders, by the way, also did not participate with a calf. So as of Thursday, 2 pretty big giant question marks there on Lattimore and Fuaga for the Saints. So with that in mind, what is your confidence level in the Dallas Cowboys beating the Saints? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let's hit some matchups to watch. Number 1 is Mike Zimmer against Clint Kubiak. There are some very fun elements involved here. A, Mike Zimmer knows Clint Kubiak very well. They were on staff together with the Minnesota Vikings. In fact, Zimmer's last year in Minnesota, Kubiak was his offensive coordinator. He knows a ton about what things he wants to run there. Now, two main areas I want to focus on. You'll see more, I think, commitment to the run out of New Orleans. They'll try to establish that. That's the offensive style. You'll see a lot more motion, too. Browns barely used it. Saints used it at a top 10 clip in week 1. The blitz rates from week 1. The Panthers against the Saints blitzed more than any team in football. 44% of the time they blitzed. The Cowboys were 20th at 23.5%. Despite that, the pressure rate allowed, the Saints were 30th at a 20% pressure rate on dropbacks. It's like 4 or 5 times. That's it. The Browns, meanwhile, had the 4th highest. So what does that mean? The Panthers brought pressure every chance they could, and they could not get home. The Cowboys didn't bring that much pressure, and they got home constantly. So 2 different tales of the tape right there. Also, this is a Shanahan-based offense. Kubiak, right? There's some heavy overlap there. He was in San Francisco before this, in between his Vikings and now Saints stint. Mike Zimmer, part of the reason why there was optimism around this hire was what he's able to do in coverage against the Shanahan coaching tree. Great stat from the now retired great graphic, I should say, from the now departed on social media, at least, at Cowboy Stats and Graphics. Gone but not forgotten. He's alive. He just retired from Twitter. Mike Zimmer, one of the best at stopping the Shanahan tree through the air. Dan Quinn, one of the worst of the notable defense coordinators. This is a trial run. It's a beta test, because it's a different animal than the Niners offense, of a big reason why you hired Mike Zimmer, or at least one of the biggest confidence reasons. He can get us better against the offenses that have killed us. He can help save us. Because Green Bay, to an extent, is a little bit of an offshoot of that. Not quite the same, but there's enough LaFleur, Shanahan overlap stuff that I think it's worth mentioning there. And there was technically the same tree, too. It's not quite as obvious as, McVay and Shanahan, right? So, Mike Zimmer, this is a big showcase game for you. All right, matchup to watch, number 2, Cam Jordan against Terrence Steele. Remember the Cowboys moved Micah Parsons around a lot? The Saints don't do that on defense. Chase Young was over the left tackle, and Cam Jordan was over the right tackle. And that did not change at all, really. So it's going to be a tough test for Terrence Steele. I thought he played pretty damn well against the Browns. Now, the Cowboys actively tried to make life easier on their offensive line. There was a lot of quick game. They moved the pocket a lot. They tried to limit a ton of one-on-one reps for a potent Browns defense. The 1 sack allowed. He also looked much better as a run blocker. I need more of that in week 2. So I am optimistic with what I saw out of Terrence Steele. Still need more. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Speaking of more, they're always adding stuff to help you save money on tickets. The latest feature, it's called Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It makes getting tickets to your favorite team play live even easier. They've also got views from your seat, so you can kind of take your phone, move it around, kind of like a live photo, and you see what your view actually is. Remember the meme of the one guy who was stuck behind the wall? He didn't use Game Time because he would have known. He would have seen it on his Game Time app. So download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. Trigger warning. The underthrown pass against Cowboys defensive backs. I will never mentally recover from that 2021 Thanksgiving game. You remember that game, right? Cowboys, Raiders, Cowboys fall behind, they come back, they go to overtime, they lose. The singular biggest reason why the Cowboys lost that game, 5 different times they got off the field on third down only to have it come back because of penalties. They had 96 penalty yards on third downs. And it was a barrage of underthrown passes from Derek Carr that were such bad throws, the receiver had to try to stop and come back to the football. So it's the classic BS underthrown pass versus DPI. I will have a bout of PTSD if I see it happen again. Get your head around. Easier said than done when you're playing from behind. But that game lives rent-free in my mind because it was a bunch of crap. All right, number 4 is the Mike McCarthy offense against Dennis Allen. This is part of your little stretch. A lot of good defenses in a row. And I don't think Dennis Allen is a particularly great head coach. He is a very good defensive mind, however. So I worry a little bit about that matchup. I think it's going to be a bit of a tricky one for the Cowboys offense. Who is the better head coach? MM for Mike McCarthy, DA for Dennis Allen. Let me know right now. Number 5 is what I call it the defensive spine against the Saints. And that it's the middle of your defense, right? It's, hey, how are your defensive tackles? How are your linebackers? How are your safeties? And I think for what Mike Zimmer wants to do, you can even mix in Jordan Lewis, who we'll come back to here more in depth in a little bit. Against a team that I think is probably just bad in Carolina, who had just nothing going on defense. It's going to be a bad defense this year. Saints were 3rd in yards on the ground, 7th in EPA per carry, 9th in success rate, 5th in explosives, and one thing that gives me some hope here. They were only 18th in yards before contact. They were 9th after contact. I thought the Cowboys tackled pretty friggin' well in week 1. And if you do that again with your linebackers, Overshown, Kendricks, Jordan Lewis, I think that you can have much more success stopping the run against the Saints than Carolina did. I want you guys to get your score predictions in between the Cowboys and the Saints. Let me know in the comments right now. Let's talk players to watch. Number 5 is Tyler Guyton. And, the Cowboys tried to hide him, which they should have. The coverage stuff, or the pressures allowed look good. 1 sack, 1 hurry. Yeah, I didn't love what I saw going back and rewatching with the better angles on Tyler Guyton. Not that he was terrible. I don't think he was bad, but I think some of his bad habits came through. And you saw, Fox did a good job showing it one time live. His main mistake, he drops that head, and he headbutts you. And it gets him out of position. And against top-tier pass rushers, that's going to be a more pronounced issue. So I think the floor is fine. If you get that every week, hopefully some better run blocking, I think you'll be okay there. But he is not a put him on an island and forget him guy. Tyron Smith was that. And I don't think Guyton's there yet. And that's okay. He's probably not supposed to be there yet. So it's probably the toughest test he's going to face all year. Because TJ Watt will probably get more reps against Terrence Steele, which terrifies me too. But so nowhere to go but up. He survived, and that was the goal in week 1. Week 2, let's be a bit better. Now, we will be live for our Cowboys vs. Saints watch party. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. It's youtube.com/@CowboysTV. I want to watch Jordan Lewis in this game. That is the cornerback. Remember the last time he played against these Saints? When he shut down Alvin Kamara, I kind of feel like the last 5 or so games, we've seen that Jordan Lewis a few times. He was great against the Browns. You can go 4 of 5 every week and allow 14 yards and no first downs. That's awesome. He was physical against the run for an undersized guy. I was very impressed with what I got out of Jordan Lewis, and I'm going to need that again against a Saints offense that will get the ball to Taysom Hill, will get the ball to the tight ends, and we'll take some deep shots with Rashid Shaheed, and we'll get Alvin Kamara involved too. Number 3, Brandon Cooks. That is the wide receiver who, if assuming Fergie can't go, probably means some more targets for Cooks. I'd like to keep getting him involved. Now, I don't want to take away stuff from Lamb, but I promise you we're not going to do Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb every week. None of those guys are on this list today. I was a man of my word, just like with the toaster. 4 catches, 40 yards, and a score. I liked what I saw from Cooks. I want to see more of it. I want to get him more involved. I want some big plays too. He's fast. Can I get some explosives with him? I think that's the next element to your offense to truly unlock it beyond the ground game. Now, who scores the first touchdown for the Dallas Cowboys? Cooks was it last week. Who is it this week? Let me know in the comments. We kind of mentioned, the spine of your defense against the Saints, their ground game all week long. That means DeMarvion Overshown steps up again. I thought he was awesome. I thought Eric Kendricks was great. Damone Clark was solid too. Overshown was very impressive against the Browns. He had 11 tackles on 44 snaps, which is just insane. That's an immensely high ratio. His speed was on full display. I think he got faster from his time in Texas, by the way. And he added some weight too. So I don't think you kind of saw, remember that first year with Micah Parsons? I think teams were surprised quarterbacks were surprised how fast he was. I think you're going to see some of that for DeMarvion Overshown too. Number one player to watch this week, how about Ezekiel Elliott? I assume he's going to start again in the backfield. We'll probably split time with Rico Dowdle. And I could have gone with both of these guys, but I'll probably space them out over the weeks. But for now, he's your RB1A. I thought Elliott was fine in week one. Relative to expectations, I really don't think we should be, as fandom, victory lapping. Zeke's as good as he ever was after 10 carries, 40 yards. That's not what he was at his best. But for what he is now, I'm pretty much fine with that. Now, I was a little bit surprised to go back and look at some of the advanced stats. It makes sense the more I think about it. And have him be so low. These are NFL Pros next-gen stats. Running backs, I took out the quarterbacks. Significantly bad rush yards over expected per attempt. And I think the big reason there, it was much better to begin the game. Zeke's last few carries were 2 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards. That was late in the game when your offense was bad. So I'm not surprised it was that low. There were no explosive plays on the ground from Elliott. He only made 1 or 2 guys miss and break a tackle. So he got what was blocked, but didn't always get more than that. And it is expected to get a little bit more than that. Now, his EPA was high because he had the touchdown run, which is a nice 6-yard touchdown run that really helps your EPA, and didn't go backwards ever. And that's always one of the big things with Elliott. The thing I've always liked most about him, especially in his recent years, if you need a yard and it's blocked for -1, if it's bad blocking, he's going to get you 1. Now, he's not going to get you 25 if it's blocked for 5 or 10, but expectations matter there. The success rate was also pretty low. He didn't get that many short yardage stuff, which is why that number was lower. He also faced a pretty light stacked box number, and part of that was the formation. They ran a lot of shotgun runs. They did better in shotgun runs because it's lighter boxes, and you can have more success up front. And I want to see a little bit more yards after contact. 2.5. He's he's always good for at least 1 or 2 on every carry. Zeke is not a player who goes sideways when you hit him. He always falls forward. But I'd like to find some explosives. Does that come from Zeke? Does that come from Dowdle? Did you give Deuce Vaughn a chance? I think you have a fine floor. I do think your ceiling right now, until we see otherwise, remains a bit limited in this backfield. So who you got? C for the Cowboys, S for the Saints. Got some super chats coming in here. All right, Chris B. First up here. Sneaky trade deadline. Maybe a DT or a DT. Or DE or DT. Yeah, I don't hate it. I still think you're one guy away up front. Ideally, another pass rush rotation guy. I don't know if I want to give as many snaps to Tank Lawrence and Osa and Marshawn Kneeland as I did. It's also, I think, you don't need a body, you need a good body. Same with wide receiver. I don't need a body, I need a good body. And those guys are kind of hard to find. From Strive365, Mike has a great percentage. He does something right. Advanced us past 8-8, put Dak in the MVP running. DQ let him down last year when needed the most. I think your entire coaching staff failed you in that Packers playoff game. And frankly, almost your entire roster did too. But I've always believed that if everything turns to shit, probably was a coaching issue. I think that Dan Quinn got you. And look, Dan Quinn did do some good stuff. I think when Dan Quinn came aboard, he was exactly what this Cowboys defense needed. I don't think they needed the same stuff anymore. And I do think that the timing from Quinn to Zimmer could end up being really good. And I think that Dan Quinn got this unit as far as he was going to, which was pretty far, to be clear. Not far enough. I'm hopeful that Zimmer can do the exact same thing on defense. Specifically, it's kind of like Kellen Moore to Mike McCarthy on offense too. Just about January. January is where it matters. JL Chanel, or Channel, but I think it's funnier to say Chanel. What's your thoughts on Dalvin Cook getting some time? He can't do worse than Zeke. He should at least be on the game day roster. Here's the issue you're going to run into when it comes to Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think you can put both of those guys on your active roster right now. I don't. Or at least like Dowdle as well. I need somebody to play special teams. And you saw it in week 1. Deuce Vaughn was out there on teams. Actually did a pretty good job, I think. I actually do think he can be worse than Zeke. I thought Dalvin Cook was pretty bad last year. Now, situations, etc., all valid. He had shown the signs of decline as well. I think this is one of those things, you're outside of an injury, if you're just going to have to wait and trust the coaching staff to say, okay, this guy's better, this guy's not. Because we're not going to get to see practice. And that's where you're going to find that stuff out. So that's one of those, it's like, I can't comment that much. I don't get to see practices. No one does. I mean, it's open for like 15 minutes sometimes. So I think you just kind of got to trust the coaching staff there. And I think juggling your numbers with Zeke not playing teams and Cook not playing teams makes it a little bit tricky from a game day perspective. But if he impresses in practice, yeah, put him out there. Again, folks, we will be live for our Cowboys Saints watch party on Sunday. It's an early start, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I don't mind the early games. Get to go home and spend time with your family, maybe. Or at least I do. Maybe. I normally have to wait a little bit longer before I get to drive home. Yeah, and I got to do other stuff too. But that's our watch party, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys are subscribed. We'll have the full injury report available on demand here in a little bit. So hit that sub button if you haven't already.